and what you hear in the here, preach on the housetops. I'd like to assume that if Jesus were to be here now on earth now, the internet would be one of the medium he would use to preach. In fact, it would be one of his best mediums. And the reason why I say this is because the times have changed. There used to be a time when you're traveling, you are always on the lookout for signboards. You are going out, you are saying, when they changed something on the road, your normal route to work or your normal route to school or your normal route to your house, you notice that the billboard has changed. You notice the color, you notice the brand, you notice all that. But these days we hardly notice, because wherever we are in transit, we are always on our phones. So in a way, our attention is now more on our digital handheld devices than we even pay to our surroundings. And of course, you know that the market in itself has gone from the physical market and has also gone online. So that means that there's a lot of attention online. So it's fair to say that the rooftops now would be online, not necessarily a physical rooftop. So when Jesus is saying that, whatever I tell you in the dark, speak it in the light. Whatever it is, I'd like to assume that this church is dark like this. Because everybody can't hear. It says, whatever I tell you in your ear, because you're the only one that has the privilege to hear it here and now, it says, scream it at the rooftop. So this is an instruction from Jesus. Let's look at Acts 5, verse 42. Yeah. Acts 5. Acts 5, verse 42. All right. So this is talking about the apostles, though. This was the early days after Jesus had, resurrected and had ascended to heaven. And it says, and daily in the temple and in every house, they did not cease teaching and preaching as Jesus Christ. I didn't want to go through the conventional Great Commission that says, go into the world and preach unto every creature, because it's been said and said and said, and it cannot be overemphasized. But one thing I wanted to bring out is the fact that there is no fixed place where you can preach the gospel. So the gospel doesn't have to come from the pulpit here. So you see in that verse 42 that we read, it said in every house. That means that they looked for a way to access everybody's house. So if I can't come to your house physically, I can come to your house, virtually. But what's important is that it's not just in the church that the preaching is taking place. It's important for us to know that preaching is not fixed to a particular location or to a particular mode or to a particular way. It can happen in any way. So, with that being said, I want to quickly explain what we mean by social media and why I said social media might not just be the only place you can actually win souls. Social media, from the word media, that's a medium, and then social, a medium where you socialize, where you interact with people. So your social media would fit for your WhatsApp, your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, because you get the opportunity to, chat with someone and you get an instant reply. You post what's on your mind, as Facebook will say, and then somebody likes it or somebody gives you a reaction and then you comment back. That's social media. That's how social media works, right? But then on the internet, we have many other tools that you can use apart from social media that are really effective. So what I want to do now is, first of all, give us those medium, and then I'll tell you what exactly you should be doing on those platforms. So what are the platforms? The first is social media, like I've said. And one thing that you must know if you're on social media is that you need to understand that the other person on that side is a human being. And your ultimate goal should be to connect. Most of the time we tend to want to project ourselves whenever we are chatting with someone or you're conversing with someone online. You want to show the person that, I know, you don't know, do you know who you are talking to? But when you're on social media, you need to first of all understand that there's somebody on that other hand. That person has a life, that person has a name, that person has a job or a school or something that they are going through. And you must be able to appeal to that side of that person. Not necessarily the words that the person is typing, because it's easy for us to forget that you're chatting with somebody on the other hand. And you just easily just want to, get your thoughts across or type whatever is on your mind or give that reaction or give a savage feedback so that, people can maybe screenshot and say, oh, savage. Nigerians are savage and all that. So it's better for you to think it twice before you give them a comment or a reply, because that's a platform where, a lot of people try to interact and engage with one another. Now, apart from social media, we also have emails. I like to call it email evangelism. If there's anybody here that does not have an email address, let me see your hands up. You don't have an email address. If you are using an Android phone, you have an email address by default. So if you are here and you have an Android phone and you have not been utilizing your email address, this is an avenue. So it's not just social media. So I'm assuming that everybody in this place has an email address. So that means that just like you all have email addresses, that means there are millions out there too that have email addresses. So email is a very good way to actually reach. So how can you reach people through email? The first is newsletters. You can do newsletters. It can be weekly, it can be monthly, it can be daily if you have the time and you have the, you have the resources to be able to put it together. You can do a newsletter. In the newsletter, it could be a daily thing or a weekly thing that you're just sharing. It could be a devotional. And the beauty of a newsletter, how a newsletter even works, is that people get to now rely on, your content because of the consistency. I don't know if anybody here follows any newsletter, but I follow some. For example, Zikoko. I'm gonna follow Zikoko. Okay, because maybe it's in the line of my work. So, Zikoko, for example, sends you mail twice a week, and in their mail they probably give you some interesting content. The last one that they shared, and it's just when I'm bored. Maybe when I'm bored, I'm like, let me even see what's even going on, and I check Zikoko, and they say we interviewed Lai Mohammed's cap, and Lai Mohammed's cap had something to say and all that stuff. But one of the things that you notice about newsletter is that you have the opportunity to engage with that person when that person is relaxed, when that person has your time. Unlike, your Facebook or your WhatsApp, the person can easily be talking to you while the person is on the go or the person is doing other things. You might not get the person's 100% attention, but as a newsletter, it's packaged. There are many tools you can use to even personalize it, where you can even tell the person, put the person's first name, and tell the person, converse with the person, give the person a link to be able to get back to you or to connect with your church and all that. So a newsletter is really an effective way of reaching out to people. But one of the challenges that before I get to that, let me also add another way you can also do with your email is a campaign, an email campaign. So an email campaign doesn't have to be every week. It can just be a verse, a Bible verse. It can just be a quote. It can just be a prayer, And that's the beauty of it. When you're doing internet, if you're trying to win souls on internet, is that you don't necessarily have to preach and say the title of my sermon is repent. And on my street, I have some people used to come on my street early in the morning, and their preaching is always very powerful. But on social media, you don't have to talk about woe and do and doom and everything there. It could just be a simple prayer. It could just be, I pray for you this morning as you're going, you find favor, you do this and all that. And that's just all you need to do. And somehow it passes a message, especially if it's consistent. I'll tell you some of the things that you need to, do when you're online. But then again, consistency is also a key thing for us to note. So a campaign is something that is just, it doesn't have to be every day. It can just be once in a while, and you just push it across, and that's it for it. But it's important for you to have a mailing list, because that's the only way you can reach. So mailing list is one key thing that you need to have. So mailing list could be you creating a form and sharing online, and people, putting their emails and all that. Another thing is that you need to avoid spamming. So if the person is not interested, you don't have to go and get people's email without their permissions. That would only pass the wrong communication. So it's important for you to have a mailing list that you can send emails to. Let me give us some of the platforms that you can use for your email newsletter. There's one that we call Moosend. That is MOOSEND. Moosend. You can actually do free email campaigns on that. There's a lot of advertising on it, but it works. And then there's also MailerLite. That is mail, MAIL, then ERM, Mailer, then LITE, MailerLite. You can also check that out as well. These two platforms helps you to, send emails, and you can even schedule it. So you don't have to be there every day or every week. You can, maybe one Sunday, you dedicate for that whole month. You would have scheduled it every Sunday. This is what I'm going to send across. Or every Tuesday or every Wednesday. This is what I'm going to send across to my mailing list. And, this is how you can do it. You can start from your small circle that you have. And the moment they enjoy it, they are blessed by your content. They will always tell other people about it. And that's how you can increase your mailing list. All right? So the thought that I have here is video evangelism. And I don't even need to say anything more than just to say video evangelism. If you are here and you have seen a TikTok video or you have seen a video on YouTube That's basically what video evangelism is. So it's you creating video content. And creating video content also does not mean that it has to be you standing and facing the camera and just dishing the word to people there. It could be a skit. It could be a skit. It could be a funny, what's it called now? What's this thing called? You know, when you're trying to lip sync or something. It could be a song. You know, if you're someone that knows how to sing, it could be a song. It could be anything that you're doing that is adding value, you know, that is somehow propagating the gospel, that is sharing the gospel. So when you're doing video, now the beauty of video is that, you know, researchers have discovered that videos get more engagement because it's not just like a text. You don't necessarily need to task your brain to be able to see it. You know, once you're there, that's why how many of us have, you know, scrolled to Instagram and before you know it, 1 hour, you are still there. It's because it's video, it's addictive. You can just there and you just scroll. You don't necessarily need to read. And at the same time, you can be looking at your mail and you get tired, you know. Somebody like me now, in my mail, I have so many unread. It's not because I don't want to read it, but I know it's text. You know, if it was video, maybe it could just be at a slang. I will have finished, you know, checking out my inbox. But because it's text, you might not necessarily be able to. So I'm just giving us the different mediums you can use. Whichever one works for you, you can use them. So video, if you feel like you might not be able to, you know, follow through with newsletters, for emails, you can create video. You can set up a YouTube account. If you have Gmail, you automatically have YouTube account. All right? So you don't have to say, oh, how do I? Well, if you want to set up YouTube, you can come and see me. If you have a Gmail account, you have a YouTube account. If you have a Gmail account, you can easily do your newsletter as well. Also, there is what we call Substack. I'll get to that later on when I get to the next one. That's content evangelism. So content evangelism is basically you coming up with different content, whether it's visual or whether it's text, to, you know, propagate the gospel. Now, for content evangelism, you can push that on blogs. So you can set up a blog, you can do your blog spots, that's free. There's Substack. Substack is also free. Sub, then stack. Substack.com is also free. Substack is like a newsletter. You can send it as a newsletter as well. And you can also share the link as a, you know, a blog. So you can use it as a blog and you can use it as a newsletter. Now, if people subscribe to Substack, to your Substack, I don't want to tell you the part where you can make money from it because it's the gospel you're sharing. But of course, you can make money from Substack as well. You know, if your content is that good, people can subscribe. You know, you can make it paid, a paid content. You can say, this is the free side of my content, this is the paid side of my content, and people say, oh, okay, I'm interested, and they pay for it. All right? But for what we're doing, you don't necessarily need the paid part of it. You can subscribe, you know, it's even so easy that even on your phone, you can just type, this is the things that the pastor preached today, blah, 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 blah. You just do your own thoughts on it, and you end it with a nice, especially those of you that are very good with words. You know, you can look for how you can simplify the word. So the pastor has preached, he said a whole lot. He gave the 7 D's of how to define something. You can simplify it in a story. And by the time you simplify it, share it on your Substack, and then share that link. Now, the beauty of Substack is that if people read it, they can subscribe to get more. So that's a very legit way of getting your mailing list if you're trying to do the email. So once people read your content and they like it, like, wow, I don't mind, I can get more of that. I've subscribed to a lot of, newsletters just, like that. I read some of their content and I'm interested in more of that, and then I subscribe. It's that easy. So you can also participate in forums as well. You can create your own, thread on a forum. Forums like, what's the name of this one now? Nairaland, right? If you're not familiar with Nairaland, I don't know what other forum I can use as an example. But forums are very good because forum is a community of people, young people just like you, online. And most times people go there to see what's trending, what's the updates, what's this, what's that. So you can always make advantage of those forums, start up a thread about a topic that you're, passionate about. And then you have, invite your friends to come and join you and also have that conversation as well. And so that's for that. And then you can also create ebooks. Ebooks is the easiest thing to do now. There's a site, forgotten the name of the site. There's a site you can use to convert websites to ebooks. So you see a website, or you see a content, or you see a post, or you see something that is nice, you can compile it and convert it to ebooks, and you can share with friends. You can, post it on a group. If you have a group chat, you can share with people as well. So that's another area of content marketing as well. So I call it content marketing. I mean content evangelism. Evangelism too is like marketing. But I wanted to be able to create that distinct difference that, as opposed to marketing where you're trying to get the person to buy, in evangelism, you are trying to sell the gospel to the person and trying to get the person to agree. So I don't want us to, be as business oriented as it, but let's just use the word marketing and evangelism rather. So content evangelism. And then the last one is podcast. I know that a lot of people might not be familiar with podcast, but it's taking wave now. And if there's anything that will become big in the next 2 years, it's going to be podcast. How many of us are familiar with Clubhouse? Okay, so we're not that much, but Clubhouse is a very good platform. In fact, we can be having church service on Clubhouse right now. And all of us don't even need to come to the church. All you just need to do is, once the service starts, you get a notification that service has started, you log in, and you can listen, you can ask questions, you can participate as well. It's not recorded, so once you miss it, you miss it. But the beauty of it is that at any particular time, you can have a conversation with people in your Clubhouse. So Clubhouse is a very good example. So podcast is just you recording a voice or, engaging with people using voice now, as opposed to video. I talked about video on YouTube. So podcast is you just talking, sharing your thoughts. A lot of us have opinion, a lot of us have thoughts, and a lot of us have influence. That's one thing that you should note, that no matter how little or small or young you think you are, you have a certain degree of influence. And when I say you have a certain degree of influence, I mean there's at least one person that looks up to you. At least one person. It could be your sibling, it could be your neighbor, in fact, it could be your gate man. There's just at least one person that looks up to you. And because you have that degree of influence, one of the key things you need to look at is how do you utilize that influence to be able to communicate, to pass the right message, to engage with those people. So most of the time, because we don't know that we have that influence, we don't even pay attention. So one of the things I need us to do going forward is pay attention to the people that somehow, whether you are aware of it or not, they are influenced by your decisions, they are influenced by your actions, they are influenced by the way you talk, the things that you do. You need to pay attention to those people. They are the people that you need to reach out to first, because they are the ones that if you tell them, this is what's trending now, this is what's trending now, download it and, let's meet there. They are the ones that will do it first. Because they are following you, they like what you do, they like what you offer. So these are the people that you first of all convert, and then they will, eventually also reach out to their influence as well. If we can influence at least our direct influences, that's how MLM works, multi-level marketing. If you can they will tell you if you can bring 2 people, and then that 2 people brings 2 people, and then that 2 people brings 2 people, and before you know it, it's a full house. So if you can try as much as possible to influence just 2 people in your circle, and have them also influence 2 people in their circle, before you know it, you're having a whole large network. And it looks like, how many of us have seen this NLP, next level prayer meeting, that's Avestas? If you are here and you have not seen it, I question your friends. Because every morning, 6 a.m., you sit there, Once I'm looking at my status, I see it there, it is my season of testimonies. I have received my congratulations. First time I saw that thing, I thought something was going on, And that's just to show you the power of influence. The fact that everybody here has seen it shows you that WhatsApp is effective. Because that means that, just assume that if every one of us can put a status of a program or a quote or something that's going on here, and we can be consistent about it, it's a daily thing. We push it every single time, and before you know it, it becomes viral. That's how viral stuff goes. That's how things go viral. So you need to be able to drive that consistency, and you need to be able to influence your direct circle. So if you can influence the next person, maybe it's your sibling or your colleague or your friend or your partner or whichever it is, if you can influence them, they can also influence people that are also down that line, and before you know it, we have a whole network. So those are the 5 key areas, key different areas that you can use on the internet. So like I've said the social media, that's your Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, and the likes. Your email, I said you can do a newsletter or you can do a campaign. I said you can do video evangelism, and then you can do content evangelism, and then finally you can do podcast. So if you're not on, and I think we can actually make use of podcasts too, Clubhouse rather. Clubhouse is really effective, and you don't necessarily need the pastor to be there. It could just be a group discussion, which also leads me to this. Let me quickly say this, that when we're talking about evangelizing and preaching, most of the time you don't necessarily need to come off as that's what I'm doing, you will just come and say Romans 6:23, for the wages of sin is death, and that will be the title of your forum. You can be as simple as saying how to win in life, or something as simple as that. How many of us have seen there's this ad I see on YouTube. It's about suffering. Your suffering can end now. That's basically how the person put it. And he was talking about Jesus anyway. And then there was this nice narrative that the person said about the fact that Jesus came to this world to suffer so that we wouldn't have to suffer. But a lot of people don't know that. That's why they are, suffering. And your suffering can end now. Click here to find out more. And I liked it. Because it was simple. It sounded like a story. It sounded like a sales pitch. And it can, even though, yes, you would share it with 1 million people and only 100 people might click to find out more. But somehow, you have been able to reach 100 people. And that's the beauty of adverts anyway. I don't know, because of time, I will not be able to talk about adverts. But organically, let's start organically first. If we are making progress organically, you can then decide to, do sponsored ads and then, pay as well. But all the ones that I've mentioned here are things that you can do by yourself and organically get people to follow you as well. So, if you are going online, what are the 3 key things that you need to do? So I've said it now. I've said you don't have to, preach and put the title of a sermon and all that. So what are the 3 things that you need to do? Number 1, you need to love. So if you are online, your main focus should be love. How can I show the love of God? There's this book that says, love one another. That's love, then W-O-N. Love one another. Meaning that if you're trying to win souls, the first thing that you need is love. If you don't show love online, you can't win the person. So whether you're commenting, whether you're, liking, whatever it is that you're doing, you must, show love. I'll tell us more on that later on. So whether it's a comment, whether it's a question you're asking, a lot of us, because nobody can see your face, we tend to lose our home training whenever we get online. We just say anything that you want to say and just move on with it. But that doesn't necessarily exemplify our love. So the first thing that you need to do online is to show love. The second thing you need to do is share. Share. So when I'm online, what can I do? Maybe I don't know how to preach. Fine. Share what the pastor preached today. Share your church address. Share your church flyers. Oh, my church is doing this today. I don't know, but when you come. So let's look at Matthew 10:27. Matthew 10:27. Matthew 10:27. Matthew chapter 10, verse 27. Okay, it's there. So, am I reading the right part like this? Sorry, John 4:39. John 4:39. John 4:39. John 4, verse 39. Okay. It said, and many of the Samaritans in that city believed in him because of the word of the woman who testified. He told me all that I did. This is talking about the Samaritan woman that Jesus had preached to. The reason many people believed is not because Jesus preached to them. It's because that woman went about and was sharing what Jesus did. So you can share your testimonies. Oh, this thing happened. I was feeling pain and Jesus healed me. Share the testimony. So don't just keep it to yourself, or you don't have to be a pastor online. You can just share a story. You can share an inspirational quote. You can share a prayer point. You can share something that you see online that touched you. Share it as well. So that's the second thing that you need to do. And then the third thing that you need to do is invite. You must invite, because I'm doing it as the way we normally do a marketing strategy. That's what we call to action. So after I've said everything that I need to do, I've shown you love, and then I've shared something nice about I've shared the testimony with you. You must be able to close in. So that call to action is to invite the person. Either you invite the person to Christ, or you invite the person to your church. If you don't know how to do it, just, come to my church. And once the person comes to church, you can hand the person over to, a mentor, a pastor, somebody that can be able to lead the person to Christ. So you must invite. If we look at Acts 10:24, because of time, I won't look at that. It talks about Cornelius. After, the angel had appeared to Peter and said, go to do this and all that, and they knew that Paul was coming. What Cornelius did was that he invited his friends and all his family and everybody. He said, come to my house. You can't miss this. I've discovered something, and you need to partake of it as well. So it's important for you to invite. Invite as many people. If you have not been inviting your friends, your colleagues, see, even if they are Christians, invite them. All right? So if you're pushing something online, there must be a call to action. Because, it's like when you leave it open-ended. I want you to give your life to Christ, but you've not told me how. You've not told me where to do it. You've not told me what to do to be able to do it. So you must close in by creating that call to action. So those are the 3 main things that you must do when you're online. You must, first of all, show love, whether it's in your comments, whether it's in your reply, whether it's in your updates. And then the next thing is that you share. You share what the pastor preached. you share prayer points, you share Bible verses, you share morning devotion. Maybe you're doing your morning devotion and something dropped in your spirit, share it. And then, of course, invite. You must be able to invite them to Christ, or invite them to your church, invite them to programs, invite them to conferences, invite them to Bible study meetings. You must invite them. All right. So what are the must-haves if you're going online? And that's what I'm going to be running off with. I'm already out of time. So first thing that you must do if you're going online, you must connect. Like I started with, I said you're dealing with humans, so you need to relate from the level of a human being. Don't just assume that it's a computer screen. I can just type as it's coming to my mind. You must aim to connect with the person. Aim to connect with the person at a human level. So try and find out the human side of that person, whether the person has a family. So don't just, when the person say, how are you, just say, fine, sup. That's not connecting anyway. Ask personal questions like, how's the family, how's work, how's this. Connect on a personal level. It helps the person to realize that, okay, this person is trying to reach out to me personally, not just conventional, chatbot response. There are some responses that is just the chatbot. Sometimes some chatbots are even more human than we human beings themselves. You have a conversation with a chatbot and you're like, wow, of course it's programming though, but if a bot can be programmed to be that, responsive and human, what about us? You know how you feel. You know how you would respond if somebody talks to you in a certain way. So you should try as much as possible to reciprocate that. You know how somebody can make you, how somebody's response can be soothing just by the kind of response the person gives. So try and reciprocate that as well. So try and connect. The second thing is to be focused, not the not the focused dance, but to be focused. What's your goal? What's your aim? What's your objective? When you're online, are you just going there to let me just see what's raining? You must have an aim. You must have a vision. You must have a goal. So my goal this week is that I must be able to preach the gospel to at least 10 people, or my view of the gospel must get at least 1,000 likes or 1,000 views. And then when you're online, you push that goal, you push that objective. You must be focused. So don't get carried away, because the internet can be distracting, Once you go online like this, and then there's a pop-up, and then somebody does something, and somebody does something, before you know it, you're distracted. Because I don't know who you are, so you must show respect. It's important for you to show respect, whether it's a video, whether it's a text, whether it's a mail, whether it's a writing, or whatever it is that you're doing, or a podcast. Respect must be there. You must show respect to whoever it is that you're talking to. And then be yourself. Don't use fake names. Some of us on our social media page, we are not using our real names. Miss Dami, Miss this, and all that stuff. Use your real name. That's how you connect on a human level. The person needs to know that the other person on that other side exists. Is a real person. So be yourself. Use your real names. Of course, you have to be careful when you're engaging with people online. There are some do's and don'ts and all that. Don't share personal information. Don't share, your credit card information and the likes. But then it doesn't stop you from being yourself, conversing with the person. You don't have to share your house address, as the case may be. But you can share your name, your first name. You can say, oh, my name is Daniel, and all that, You can be as broad as saying, I live in Lagos, and all that. And then, like I said earlier, you need to be consistent. You can't do it one time and then move. You need to do it every day, every week, every month. You need to give yourself that goal and be consistent with it. And then you also need to ask questions. That's one way to actually get engagement. Ask questions, whether in the comment field or even in your post as well. Research has shown that people that ask questions in their post get more engagement than people that just post ordinarily there. So you've posted something interesting, ask a question. What do you think about this? What's your take? Or when somebody posts something and you want to engage that person, you want to start a conversation with that person, say, I don't understand. Can you tell me more about this? Can you explain to me more? The moment the person is trying to explain, you have initiated a conversation. So that's one way to actually get started. I'm sorry. Ask questions. And then finally, trust the Holy Spirit. All right? So it's the Holy Spirit that still does the work, even though you are using the social media and internet to do it. But you need to trust the Holy Spirit for guidance, to be able to guide you, direct you, and lead you right. All right? So to close, I'm done already anyway, so I'm closing now. I will just close with these two verses. Romans chapter 10, verse 14 to 15. Because I started with the word, I want to end with the word as well. Romans chapter 10, verse 14. Let's look at Romans 10, 14. Okay. So Romans 10, 14. It says, how then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? How shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? How shall they hear without the preacher? Verse 15. And how shall they preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the gospel of peace, who bring glad tidings of good things. So, the reason why people are not converted is because people are not talking to them. You don't necessarily need to know their house. If you have their contacts on your phone or they are following you on Facebook and Instagram, you need to preach the gospel. On the final note, let's look at 2 Timothy 4 verse 2. And I'm done. 2 Timothy 4 verse 2. This is the charge that Paul gave to Timothy, and I want to give it to you as well. It says, preach the word. Be ready in season and out of season. Convince when you're online. Convince, rebuke, exhort with all long suffering and teaching. That means that when you're online, you need to be patient and you need to be ready to teach. I pray that this small thing that I've said would be able to guide us when next we are going online. And God will give us the harvest that is bountiful in Jesus' name. Can we bow down our heads as we pray?